Hello, Soundies. Welcome to our Sound for Video session. Great to have you all here today. And hello to everybody in the chat there. Grateful for you all joining us here today. I'm operating solo again today, but we have an pretty exciting agenda. So it'll be, let's jump into that. Why don't we? Let's go ahead and switch over here to our agenda. So this is going to be, well, before I jump, I'm getting all excited, so I'm jumping ahead. This is a workshop. These are always much less formal than the videos we put out on my main channel, Curtis Judd Audio. This is an opportunity for the community to get together, talk, chat, learn some things, look at some new gear when that's appropriate. And in the case of today, it is appropriate because we have a ZOOM H1 XLR, brand new recorder from Zoom that's now shipping. They announced it actually a couple of months ago, but I think it was now shipping. I have a copy here on loan from B&H, so thank you to B&H, so that I didn't have to spend my money on yet another recorder. I've got plenty of recorders, so thank you again to B&H. So that's they're the ones that are helping out here. So we'll dig into that. We'll talk about what it's how is Zoom kind of positioning this? Who's it for? What's it good for? Then we'll take a look at it in practical terms. We actually have one right here, and we'll hook up a microphone, make some recordings, take a listen to them, see what that's all about. And then we do have a couple of questions that were submitted ahead of time, or one question that was submitted ahead of time. So we'll take a look at that as well. So Fabian, great to have you here. Thanks so much. Hi, Da Vinci Girl. It's great to have you here as well. Here we have Dan from Sweden. It's good to have you here. Mark. Oh, we have some Formula One going south of Austin, Texas today. So good to know. All right. Matt says, oh yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. Just watching your review of the SWX batteries. I want those so much, but they are not cheap. Yeah, they're professional tools, and they are actually, if you compare them relative to a lot of other cinema batteries. So, for example, I have some by a German company called Bebob. The SWX are actually cheaper per watt hour than the Bebob batteries. So, and they have the PD Pro connectors, so they have some really nice features. So, yeah, it's context. We're talking about 2,000 recharge cycles is what they say that you can get out of these. Anyway, it's pretty good. All right, Robert is off to SMPTE in Hollywood this week. Very good. Excited for what you'll learn there at SMPTE, Robert. Have a good time. All right, let's go ahead and see. Yeah, let's look at the X1 or the H1 XLR, and let me just cue this up on the computer here. So before we even take a look at it, who's this thing for? And that's a big question. It is. Well, let me show you here. Here's the overhead. So here is a ZOOM H1 XLR. So my first recorder that I ever owned was a ZOOM H4, the original version, not the N. Really ugly piece of plastic with preamplifiers that created all sorts of self-noise, but I learned a lot with it. My second recorder was a ZOOM H1, which has the two stereo microphones on it and no XLR inputs. It had a 3.5 millimeter input, and I often use that as sort of I'm using air quotes here, poor man's pocket recorder for lavalier microphones, or in lieu of a wireless microphone system. So I could plug a lavalier microphone in there and record my video. And that was a handy thing, as Zoom calls them. The H series are the handy recorders, as you can see right here. So they've come a long way, and the thing that they're doing now is this is an H1, so this is a $149 US recorder, 2 XLR combination inputs, meaning you can plug in XLR or quarter inch, so you can feed both. It also has switches here for line or mic for each input, so it can be a line level input or a microphone level input. That is, I think Zoom has gotten a lot of feedback, including from me, about that over the years, because they're handy recorders. People got very confused because, of course, they didn't read the manual. And so when they went to go to a concert and record a feed from the soundboard, they just plugged they got a feed and the cables coming out were XLR on their side, so they plugged them in XLR. Well, the problem was with those original H series recorders, when you plugged an XLR connector into the combination jack, that was telling the recorder, hey, this is a microphone level signal. You had to plug in a 1/4-inch TRS to tell it, hey, this is a line level signal. So a lot of people got confused and frustrated. And in any case, looks like they are addressing that now by actually giving you the ability to switch. So whether you're using XLR or 1/4-inch, you can switch it to mic or line level, either one. And I'm just referring to this right here. All right, so that's what it looks like. Who is it for? And here is Zoom's marketing page. So if you go to their site, here's my friend Watson Wu, who's recording some sound effects, it looks like, with it. Probably has some sort of stereo mic in there, I'm guessing, because he's got a couple of XLR connectors here. Here we have what I assume is a podcaster. And they're calling it the Record Everything Recorder. It's kind of a multi-purpose thing. Go anywhere, record anything. XLR, or H1 XLR is the recorder for creators who know no limits. Capture audio for video, direct feeds from mixers, song ideas, and more. They have an intro video. We won't play that here. Input flexibility, as I mentioned before, XLR or TRS, 1/4-inch combo inputs. So you can record either. You can record instruments. You can record feeds from mixing boards. You can record microphones. There's also a 3.5 millimeter stereo input, which allows you to record on camera mics, lavalier phones, and other sources. As far as I'm aware, this is just a stereo recorder. So if you plug in a 3.5 millimeter, I believe that I'll have to check that, but my sense is that the XLR inputs are then disabled. So it's a grand total of 2 tracks. As with their H Essential series of recorders, this is 32-bit float. So the way they implement that is you do not set the gain. The gain is hard set by the engineers who designed the recorder. And so that's what you're getting there. With 32-bit float and dual analog to digital converters, the H1 XLR's vast dynamic range preserves details in both quiet and loud recordings. There we go. Oh, hey, here's Watson again. Ultra clean preamps. The XL, we'll actually test this. The H1 XLR's preamps give you crystal clear audio with a minus 122 dB equivalent input noise and sample rates up to 96 kilohertz. Okay, good. Line level like a pro. Hey, here we go. This is what we're this is what we're talking about. So now you can capture plus 4 dBu professional line level signals to record clip-free audio from any mixer or line output. It's really nice to see Zoom progressing, and as they produce new recorders, they're actually taking into account feedback, which is really nice. You can switch it from stereo to mono if you need to do that, so that simplifies things in post-production for you. Applications, they're talking about musicians, DJ sets, camera recorders. There's Watson again, sound designers. So those who are recording sound effects, podcasters, perfect audio for your mobile. So if you're going to do anything with like a video podcast with your mobile phone, you can plug directly into your mobile phone and record there. The interface is 32-bit float, so you can record 32-bit float into your computer, whether that's a PC, Mac, iOS, or Android device. And it can also record to the SD card at the same time. Good. I've definitely gotten the feedback there. There's this accessibility feature, which is really, really good for sight-impaired folks that need something to read out what they're seeing in the menu, or for people. That's one thing I will say, is that when we look at the recorder here, go back to the overhead here. My eyes have a hard time seeing it, especially once you get into the menu. We're kind of zoomed in here, but in regular life, I'm finding it a little bit difficult to read that. So having that accessibility feature may be useful. I don't know if I'd turn the accessibility on. I'd probably put my glasses on, but for those that don't have that luxury, having the ability to have it actually tell you what it's doing or where you're at, read the menus to you, if you will, that's really nice. All right. it has a built-in mixer. So what that means, again, is since you're not setting the gain, instead what you do is you pop into the mixer here. Whoops. That was a marker. I'm going to the mixer menu here, so I can choose which of the inputs I want to change the level on, and this is a fader. This is a post-digital conversion fader, so I can go all the way down to minus infinity, which is at minus 60, and I can go up to, I can add, is that 40? Yeah, 40 dB. So I can add 40 dB of digital gain on top of where it comes in. So, and then I can go down to minus 60, and then it switches over to minus infinity from there. So you have some range there. So you're not setting gain, you're just adjusting a fader, which is post analog to digital conversion, meaning when you are adjusting that, you are adjusting it just like you would in post-production. It is not changing the analog preamplifier in any way. All right, there's a waveform display. They started doing that. They did that on their F3 recorder. I think they did it on their the H Essential series as well. I think what they're trying to do, if I had to guess, is that they're trying to get people away from just watching meters and instead operate in a kind of a looser fashion, maybe. Because you don't have to worry, you don't have to worry. It's unclippable, which we know none of that's entirely true. But I think they're trying to get people to maybe to use their ears more. I really don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the waveform. It's okay, but it's not precise. And sometimes I want to be precise. So that's the thing that I find a little bit frustrating. They do have a headphone output as well. There's a 3.5 millimeter headphone output. However, it is shared. If you're going to feed audio to a camera, you don't get headphones. You'd have to listen instead to the camera's headphone outputs. So as we come back over here to the camera here, you'll see this output right here. A little trying to get it in the light. There it is. 3.5 millimeter headphone or line output, and then you can adjust it here. So that is a limitation if you're looking for something more. But again, we're talking here about a $150 recorder. So that's pretty good. It does provide phantom and plug-in power. So phantom on the XLR inputs, plug-in on the 3.5 millimeter. It stores to SDXC, micro SDXC, up to 1 terabyte. Has that onboard speaker so you can play back and just make sure that you got what you needed, or you have got that voiceover that talks you through the menus for the accessibility. And then in terms of powering, it's powered by 2 AA batteries or via the USB-C port. Let me go ahead and power this off and show you. Saving data. Goodbye. See you. As always, Zoom is very friendly. On the back here, we have these double tabs. This is actually one of the better battery designs I've seen from Zoom. It has 2 tabs, one on each side, but it is all flexible, fantastic plastic. But yes, 2 AA batteries fit right back there. 1/4 on the back for mounting, but it does lock pretty well. So I got to hand that to them. Really nice big rubber feet here, a solid bar of rubber across the bottom there. And a couple up here so it doesn't go sliding all over the place when you have it sitting on a flat surface, flat hard surface. So that's good. All right, you can also power it via USB-C port, as I mentioned there, or battery packs. Whoa, Watson looks serious here. He's going to go anywhere and record everything. It's a gallery of photos, blah, blah, blah. So this is about, essentially, it's essentially, to me, it looks a lot like an H4 Essential minus the built-in microphones and in a much smaller form factor. So that's essentially what it looks like to me. $50 more than the H1 Essential, again, minus the stereo mics plus 2 XLR combo inputs. So they've got a recorder for just about anyone over here at Zoom. So let's go back over to our copy of it here, and let's take a look at it. Let's go ahead and plug in a microphone. We've got a Sennheiser MKH50 that we've just plugged in here. I'll go ahead and power it on. Okay, so looks like we're getting signal here. You can see by the waveform that's showing that we're getting signal. So I have the MKH50 positioned about 40 centimeters from me, maybe I would say. So for those that do reckon in inches, I guess that would be 18 inches to maybe somewhere between 18 and 24 inches. All right, now, because I'm just recording one microphone, what I'm going to do is there's this first button here that says stereo mono, and you have three choices here. You can go to mono 2-channel, that's what we have right now. So on this recording, each input will be recorded to its own track. Good. There is a stereo setting, so you're essentially telling it, hey, this is a stereo pair. So it's going to put it into a stereo file in post-production. And then there's the mono input 1. So now you'll notice that the screen changes. Now we're just focused on recording a single track to the WAV file. So those are your different options there. In our case, since we're just using the one microphone, we'll just do that like that. Menu, let's come back to that. Let's get some sound here first. Let's go ahead and record. Okay, so we started recording. I am talking right now. By the way, you're not hearing this right now. We're going to go ahead and download the file when we're done here to the Mac here, and we'll listen back to it. But for right now, you're actually hearing me through my Earthworks Ethos microphone, kind of close mic'd here. Come back here. Here we are, just this guy right here. That's the Earthworks Ethos. That's going into the Mackie DLZ over to the Canon C200. That's what digitizes the audio. It actually may go through it probably goes analog to digital in the Mackie, then back to analog through the outputs into the camera, digitized again, and then that goes into the ATEM Mini out to the encoder, which is an Epiphan Pearl Nano, and then that's what you're hearing. All right, so that's what we're looking at here. And this is what it sounds like. So let's go ahead and bring this back into, we'll stop the recording here. So go back to the overhead camera. To stop the recording, can we press, we can press the record button, or you could press the stop button, it looks like. That's cool. Now let's go ahead and get our USB-C cable and let's transfer this over to our computer, this file that we just recorded. So USB-C into the side there. Give me just a second to hook this up to the computer. Okay, now once we've done that, it automatically comes up and asks, hey, do you want to do file transfer, or do you want to do this as an audio interface? I want to do file transfer, so we're going to go ahead and choose file transfer, and we can power via USB. That's fine. Okay, so now we should be able to come over here to the computer. Let me switch over there. Give me just a second. All right, switching over to the Mac. And we'll open a new tab here. We've got the ZOOM H1. There's our recording there. Let's actually just see if we can play it back here. Through my Earthworks Ethos microphone, then back to analog through the outputs into the, and this is what it sounds like. So okay. Awfully roomy. Got the microphone a little bit away, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and drop this over here. It's copying. It is, okay, there it is. Copied over. Not super fast, but fast enough, I suppose. We can drop it right in here. We'll come over to Fairlight and drop this right in here. Open this up. We're definitely going to need to boost that, aren't we? So we can boost up to 30 dB. Let's go ahead and put it right around there. And let's play this back and see what we've got. Okay, so we started recording. I am talking right now. By the way, you're not hearing this right now. We're going to go ahead and download the file when we're done here to the Mac here, and we'll listen back to it. But for right now, you're actually hearing me through my Earthworks Ethos microphone, kind of close mic'd here. Come back here. Here we are, just this guy right here. That's the Earthworks Ethos. That's going into the Mackie DLZ over to the Canon C200. That's what digitizes the audio. It actually may go through it probably goes analog to digital in the Mackie. Okay, so pretty roomy, but that has more to do with microphone position than it does to do with the recorder. But let's go back and let's get another recording. Let's get that microphone a little closer and let's see what happens here. So I'm going to bring this mic. This is the Sennheiser. Bring that in a little closer, just so we get less of that really roomy noise or roomy sound that we were getting there. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is let's eject the H1 from the computer just so that we don't mess up anything on the... Okay, now coming back to the overhead so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay. Whoops, back. Unplugging the USB, there we go. Okay, so we're back here. I'm going to go ahead this time and I'm going to, in the mixer, I'm going to go ahead and add some gain here. Checking our levels here. Now we get kind of a more standard type of meter. Checky check, 1, 2, 3, but there's no marking, so we don't know exactly what it is, but we'll go ahead and set it there. Now it looks like the waveform is right up against 0, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and make another recording. There we go, started our recording here. It shows when you started, that's nice. So you get the waveform the whole time you're talking, as long as it's getting input on that input. But as soon as we start the recording, it goes into a different different intensity there. You can kind of tell the difference there. All right. All right, so this is the ZOOM H1 XLR, the Sennheiser MKH50, and we're making a recording here so we can hear what this sounds like. 30 seconds is what we'll give it, and that should be good. We can go ahead and press stop on our recording. Good there. All right. Let's go ahead and connect this back up. I like that it goes straight here and asks you, hey, what do you want to do? We want to go file transfer, and we'll power via USB. Cool. All right, go back over to the Mac. Let's get this recording right here. Where are we at? Oh, that's OWC. Let's go to ZOOM H1. So it numbers it by date and time, it looks like, for file naming. And then we will go ahead and drop that in here. Get rid of this one. Goodbye. And this is the one we just recorded. Wow, look at that. A little bit clipped, so let's just move this out. Probably have to pull the gain down a touch. Okay, let's hear what this one sounds like. There we go, started our recording here. It shows when you started, that's nice. So you get the waveform the whole time you're talking, as long as it's getting input on that input. But as soon as we start the recording, it goes into a different different intensity there. You can kind of tell the difference there. All right. All right, so this is the ZOOM H1 XLR, the Sennheiser MKH50, and we're making a recording here so we can hear what this sounds like. 30 seconds is what we'll give it, and that should be good. Okay. Sounds like an MKH50 to me. So that was good. So when we go back to the default, it came in like that, a little bit from a digital perspective clipped, but of course we were able to restore that, no problem. You can especially see, for example, right here, if we zoom in, if I go back to the original, it was up against 0, and it looks like it's restoring that pretty well. We zoom way in, yep, there's still some kind of, there's a peak there. That looks pretty natural, so it does look like it's restoring it okay. All right, so there we go. There's the ZOOM H1 XLR so far. Let's go to the chat and see what's going on in the chat here. And I'm going to move this out of the way for just a moment. Put that right there. Okay, looks like there's lots going on in the chat. Let me catch up here. Let's see. Matt's talking about the snapping together of the core SWX snap batteries. That is pretty cool. And yeah, they're really nice and much cheaper than typical cinema batteries like Anton Power or others like that. All right. There are some audio dropouts from the sound of it in your voice right now, every now and then. Maybe increase the buffer size. Interesting. All right. Manutech Sound says, hello, why are we making this as field recorder only? Because of my bias. I am not unbiased. I am biased, and the way I would look at this is largely a field recorder. I think calling it a field recorder from the standpoint that it's primarily battery operated, and you can take it anywhere. You don't have to use it in the field. Just making the distinction from an audio interface, which is typically tied to a computer, which is you're less likely to take that out into the field. So it's a blurry line between them, and there's some overlap. So I'm not trying to say that you can only use it out in the field. You cannot use it at home. Not what I'm saying at all, but that's just kind of a one way to put it. Mr. Hammett says, yes, I remember the original H4 from Neil Ewer's podcast on it. It made a noise like a hairdryer on low speed. Plenty of self noise. Absolutely. All right. Okay. Just kind of we're going to skip the battery stuff. We can come back to that later. If this dock I'm producing ever get the money, I'm buying a stack of them. Very good. I hope that works out well. I hope you get funding. Hope you get what you need there. All right. What is the price point on the new Tascam versus this? Zoom really needs to start including a proper temperature compensated crystal oscillator in their non-flagship devices. So yeah, that's two things there. No, there is no there's no time code clock in this. So that's one thing. This is the ZOOM H1 XLR is $149 US, and the Tascam, as I recall, is $399 US. So more than twice the price. So there's a reason for that. Yes, it's only 2 inputs on the Tascam as well, but it also has that time code plus several other things that the Zoom doesn't have, including the Bluetooth wireless monitoring. Excuse me, which some people find very exciting. So they're just some different things. All right, DaVinci Girl says timestamp timeline syncing. There is a button here to set markers. I don't know, DaVinci Girl, if that's exactly what you're referring to, but you can set markers which are then written into the metadata. Some digital audio workstations will read those. So that is there. Dan says, after a certain age, it's not possible to read any display. Eyes do age, as do ears. So yeah, I hear you definitely. All right. Christopher asked, is the bias power or the plug-in power 5 volt or only 3 volt like many other consumer devices? That is a great question, Chris. Let's go take a look and see what we can find out if Zoom... Oh, good grief. See if Zoom has that covered. Going back to zoomcorp.com, let's switch over to the Mac. They have their new live track L6. Keep going. There we go. Here's our H2 Essential. We need the H1 XLR. Let's look at the features and specs. Okay. Doesn't say anything there about the plug-in power. Okay. It supplies 2.5 volts. Again, that's kind of a disappointment. So Christopher, yeah, I'm with you. I don't understand why they don't just supply 5 volts, like is pretty standard. I think I do. I think what they're trying to do is to be as power efficient as possible. And they do that at the expense of being able to use microphones that require higher voltage. Now, people will plug in their microphones that require 5 volts and they'll say, hey, they work fine. Undervolting your electronics is not a good idea. I would avoid that if you can. So that is a limitation here. Maximum input level is plus 4 dBu when you're in microphone mode, plus 24 dBu in line mode. Very good. Phantom power, it'll provide 10 milliamps or less per channel. Oh no, sorry, channel total. So if you're phantom powering 2 mics, it can't exceed 10 milliamps total. So that's another limitation, another thing where, again, it's always a trade-off. It's an engineering trade-off. You see this over and over again. Zoom is always very cognizant of power efficiency. And that's where you'll see other companies like Sound Devices. They're kind of like, woo, let's do everything, make it cool, but it's going to suck through the batteries like crazy. So, so that may be, you have to decide for yourself what your priorities are and make decisions based on that. Zoom is almost always going to err on the side of power efficiency, and they will sacrifice other things like the plug-in power, like the amount of current that they'll supply for phantom power to XLR microphones. Now, granted, there are lots of condenser microphones that use less than 5 milliamps, so that's going to be fine for a lot of them. But there are some that do require more than that. So if you're going to use your really fancy microphones, this may not pan out very well. Okay, Matt has an opinion about Zoom things. I know it's probably not true, but in my world, I just don't trust Zoom stuff. I'm one of those guys that just quit buying Zoom because how plasticky they are. That is a fine perspective, Matt. Fachiri says, speaking of prices of things, I was looking to upgrading from a MixPre 10 to the 833, and the 833 being $2,000 more expensive from 4 years ago is pretty painful. It is. Once they launched those, I believe in 2018 or 19, I think 2019. Then we went into 2020 and 2021, and there was a lot of supply chain things that happened, and the prices on the very niche gear like the Sound Devices 833 definitely went up. I am fortunate to have purchased my Sound Devices 888 before that in 2019. So, and that's actually now a $10,000 mixer. I think when I bought it, it was a $7,000 mixer, if I remember right. So, yeah, there are definitely some differences these days. So that is a little bit painful. But what it comes down to is, do you need the flexibility, the far more, larger number of outputs, comms integration, so on and so forth of the 833? That's, only you can decide that. All right. Let's, we've got a lot going on in the chat here. Oh, good note here from Daniel. For those who are thinking about going all in with the iZotope RX post-production software without having any of the software already, the post-production Suite 8 software bundle is currently 50% off. That's actually a really good deal. All right. Udo says, I would use the H1 XLR only for ambient recordings that do not need sync to cameras. Don't know about other uses for video productions. That's fair. Yeah, I think for someone that's trying to do, for example, I would say podcast on, they're never going to have more than 2 microphones and they're trying to keep it, it's all self-funded. They're just trying to keep it straight ahead. 2 SM58s and a ZOOM H1 XLR. Not a bad setup. So speaking of which, let's go ahead and try plugging in a microphone like the Shure SM7B and see what we get there. We'll do that in just a minute here. All right. Different issue here. Have you, off topic, have you tested live streaming for the ATEM recently to see if your issue has magically fixed itself? I have not, and I do need to do that at some point. Can you check the system profiler to see if it connects as USB 2 or USB 3 drive? That could make a difference. Well, let's take a look. Let's head on over to the Mac again. I assume system profiler. It's not there. I think it's, you go here and then you go here. And then, no, where do you go? Where did they move that to? System report. I think this is what you mean. If we come to USB, let's see, where is it? It's on USB 3.1 bus. It is recording to FAT32 file system, so it is going to break the files up if you get longer recordings. For those that's you know that's important to you, just keep that in mind. It's not a problem. You can just drop them into your digital audio workstation right next to each other, and they'll sync. They'll be just fine. But it is a little bit more work. But yeah, it looks like it's on a USB. Well, the bus is 3.1. There is this is an external hub over here. This USB 2.0 hub. I can't tell whether its connection it's negotiated is USB 3 or not. But it is connecting to, well, that's because I plugged it directly in. I'm not sure, Christopher. It's a good question. I don't know how to tell that for sure. Doing this all solo is much harder. You're doing great. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. We're trying our best to keep, I'm so used to having Danny do the switching that sometimes I just get all excited and start talking about the next thing and I forget to switch when I'm supposed to. But can I monitor stereo to headphones when using a mid-side mic? Let's take a look at that. I didn't see anything about mid-side decoding on here. So let's take a look and see if we can find anything. First, I'm going to eject this so that I don't mess anything up. There we go. Eject it on the computer side. Come on, let go. There we go. Then we can go back and back. No, hey, back. Unplug. Okay, there we are. All right, so we want to know, is there any sort of mid-side monitoring or decoding on this? I don't think there is, but let's check. It would probably be in the output settings. You have volume control or fixed level. So nothing to do. Let's go into volume control. Nope, you get to change level with the knob, or you go to fixed level. Fixed, I assume, is line level. Okay, so we come back, and if we go to fixed level, yeah, so that's just setting it for line. Does not look like there is a mid-side decoder. So it's a good question. And there you go. Are you planning to have some training for immersive audio? I need to learn more about immersive audio first. I need a mentor, honestly, is what I need. I don't know if that was a question for me or if that's a question for DaVinci Girl. We did prepare an immersive audio complete library, interactive. Each of the presets comes with a video. There are 216 songs of rock history and more than 300 patches, so non-musicians have lots to work with of advantages. Cool. But yeah, Dan, to answer your question, I don't have expertise in the immersive audio world as yet, so I am not in a position to teach it. But as I learn more about it, hopefully we can do that. Mark is honored and flattered, actually, that Matt Ruff wants to do a documentary on him and his Nikon cameras. That's pretty cool. Steve says, as a running gun field recordist, the H1 XLR could be a game changer, easier than a mix pre around the neck for tight situations. That's fair. Yep. All right. Okay. Camerahead Studio says, with that new Tascam FR AV2, it's hard to look at any other new small handheld recorder unless Zoom comes out with something new to compete other than the Zoom F3. Yeah, that's the closest competitor right now, and I would anticipate that they're not planning to replace that really soon, but I don't know. I could be wrong. The Zoom F6 has still not been replaced. It's still, the only thing they've done with that is fix an issue with the 3.5 millimeter output. There were some hardware issues in the initial run of them. They updated that. It's still called the F6. Nothing else has changed as far as I'm concerned, hardware-wise. So they haven't replaced that, and that was 2019 that they introduced that, as I remember. Maybe 2018, 2019, somewhere in there. All right. How do you think the H1 compares to the F3? The EIN is dBu better, of course, for the F3. That's probably the main thing. Well, let's test that. That's a good question. I don't know if I say EQ film or EQ film. Let's check it out. Let's go to our overhead camera. And what we'll do to test this is I'm going to go ahead and first of all turn off the phantom power. So we're going to go back up to the input settings. Input, 1. Phantom power off. Okay. So when I come back out, drop out of the menu, we should have nothing. We have just noise. Okay, disconnected. Isn't that interesting? That is not a flat line. So let's do this. Let's bring our XLR connector with a 150 ohm resistor across pins 2 and 3. Thank you, Julian Krause, for supplying me with that. Pop that in. So this is simulating the load of a dynamic microphone, in essence, which is what you need to do when you're going to test. So this is not a measurement of EIN. This is instead a practical measurement. And so what we're going to do is we'll come into the mixer. Let's go ahead and set the fader at 0 dB. So this should be no digital gain. It should be just the self noise of the preamplifier. And we'll go ahead and set it there. Ah, now it looks like a flat line. Interesting. Okay, so let's make a recording. And we'll let that run for a few seconds here. This is our test recording here. 10 seconds should do it. Go ahead and stop. Get our USB-C cable. Connect this back up to the computer. We'll do file transfer. And we'll get power from the USB port. Okay, we'll switch over to the Mac. Here we are on the Mac. We will open up a new tab to get the new file. This should be it right here. We'll drop that over here on this. And what I want to do this time is we'll actually go into Isotope RX audio editor, and we'll take a look at it in there. Here we go. We don't need those previous files. That's okay. All right. Coming into here and here. Okay, here it is. Let's go ahead and pull up our waveform stats. I know this is small. Unfortunately, I can't make it larger. All right, the max RMS level is sitting at minus 75.62 dB. Now, what is max RMS? Max RMS is, so RMS is root mean square. It's essentially an average. So before we did a lot of measuring by loudness units, full scale, or loudness units K-weighted relative to full scale. So that's LUFS or LKFS, more modern way of measuring loudness. A lot of times we relied on RMS levels. And that's just where you take a bunch of samples and you average them over time. So it gives you kind of an average level as opposed to an instantaneous peak level. Max RMS is sort of it somehow samples the max levels and averages those. So you get a sense that oftentimes is what you can hear. and that came in at minus 75.62, so about minus 76 dB. We found on those microphones that we probably had to boost them like 15 dB. So if I take this entire thing here and I get the gain control here, and let's boost everything by, let's say 15 dB, which is pretty realistic. That was for a condenser microphone, mind you. Now, if I look at this section right here, now we're sitting at max RMS level minus 60. Interesting. Let's say that we already added 15 dB. What if we add another 10 dB? Let's say that's about what we might need for, this is guessing here, what we might need for a Shure SM7B. Now our max RMS is sitting at minus 50. So these are not the cleanest preamplifiers that I have seen. This is probably in the same line as the H Essential line of recorders. I want to say this. A lot of times that's not going to matter. For those that are working, that are doing podcasts in a very well-treated acoustic space with some very good microphones, with good microphone technique, you might start to be able to notice this. Do you need a cloud lifter? We're going to have to do some more testing, but you might. You actually might with this kind of thing. So again, not the cleanest preamplifiers, $150. So let's keep that in mind. And that's true of the entire H Essential line that I've seen so far. So is this part of the Essential line? They don't specifically say. It looks very much like it, but they didn't put Essential in the name on this particular one. But it seems like the same preamps as far as I can tell. So are they clean? Clean enough for a lot of cases, but for those that are very demanding and want as little self-noise as possible, you probably should pass on this one. I'm not sure if this question has been asked, but how does this compare to the F3? Well, let me tell you a few things. Number one, there is no time code functionality at all on the... there's no time code sync with external devices capability on the H1 XLR, so it's not made for... It's not a specialist recorder for filming types of scenarios. That's one thing. Secondly, the body is all plastic. Third, the price is lower substantially. The form factor is very different. What else can I tell you that's different so far? Those are the... Oh, that has a 3.5 millimeter input. I don't believe the F3, I don't think does. Let me check. Yeah, the F3 does not have a 3.5 millimeter input, and the F3 has both a line output and a headphone output. So, whereas on the H1 XLR, it's one output, and you can either make it for line level output for your camera, or mic level output for your camera, or headphones, but not both. So, just because it's limited to a single physical connector. So this one has, the F3 has two connectors, one for headphones, one for line out. All right. Here's a question. Manutech sounds, can we use external power instead of batteries? Yes, USB-C. It can be powered via the USB-C bus. All right. There's a lot of talk here about agents and making documentary films. Thank you for that. Omelet Pan has a funny comment. It was a bold move to make their H-series recorders to look like a prize you get after putting a quarter in the claw machine at the arcade. Okay, not everyone's a fan of the industrial design. Whoops, let me get to the overhead camera here. Not everyone is a fan of the industrial design. It started with the ZOOM H8. It seems to have carried forward with the H Essential series and now the H1 XLR. Not everyone's cup of tea, but there you go. Angular, very angular. It's kind of like a Cybertruck almost, except black. So there you go. All right. Is it better or worse than the F3? Well, if you want cleaner preamps, then you definitely want to go for the F3. is the H1 XLR is better than the F3 because it's cheaper. It depends on what's important to you. Is my point here. All right, Christopher did look up here. It says up to 480 megabits, so it's USB 2 transfer speeds. Yeah, so not super fast on the transfer speeds. Fortunately, it's audio. Audio files are much smaller than video, so it's not as big of a deal, but yeah. The H1 XLR could be a very good and affordable device for live streaming, especially with computers. Would you suggest it in conjunction with switchers like A10 Mini or similar devices? The A10 Mini's mic line inputs are not the cleanest. They produce quite a bit of self noise, so we'd have to test to see what it would be like to go line out from the H1 into the A10 Mini. However, if you are using an encoding app on your computer, like OBS, then you could feed the video in from the A10 Mini and the audio in via USB from the H1, and that should work well. So the only downside is then you don't get the processing of the A10 Mini. You'd have to do the processing in OBS. So yeah, it could certainly work, but is it ideal? The A10 Mini is good in so many ways. One of its weakest points from my point of view is the audio inputs. Just so much noise. Robert says, is the 150 ohm resistor a carbon or wire wound resistor? Does it make a difference? I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. We'd have to ask my friend Julian, and I'll do that next time I talk to him. And I don't know if it makes a difference or not. He might have an opinion on that as well. He's much more into technical testing of audio gear, especially audio interfaces, than I am. So he's got a lot more background and experience there. All right. Just taking a look through the chat here. Ooh, here's an interesting question, unrelated. But I'm going to come back to this. Fichuri, it's a great question. I'm going to come back to this because what I need to do for the moment is get to the questions that were submitted ahead of time. And let's go back to here so you can see the questions. Dave asks, if I need to massively boost the level of a 32-bit float recording in DaVinci Resolve, how do I do that? More than 30 dB of gain that it allows. Okay, it is a good question. Dave, let's take a look. If you are in DaVinci Resolve, I think what you want to do is you want to take your track. We've already boosted this, and say we boosted it to this level, and we want, well, first of all, you'll notice you can only do a total of 30 dB. Now that's way more than this particular file needs. However, actually, let's go back to the other file. It was a better fit for this example. So let's boost this 30 dB. Okay, that's all I can give it. If I needed to do more, what I could do is bounce this track. And I'm going to have to remember how to do this because I haven't done a lot of it. But if I come into the timeline and I can bounce the selected track to a new layer, let's do that. Oh, we got to do it on a track level here. Bounce selected track to a new layer. Okay, now it wants a range, so we'll select a range. Let's go Shift Z. So this is our range. Okay, let's see now. Bounce selected track to new layer. Boom, there, it did it. And I can add another 30 dB. So that's how you want to do that, Dave. Hopefully that makes sense and gets you off to the races. If you're boosting more than 30 dB, I realize at this point you're in post-production, so you're just trying to make this work. But in the future, you probably want to make sure that your levels are coming in a little bit hotter in post or in production. That'll maybe make that a little bit easier for you. Okay. Thank you, Dave. All right, let's go back to the chat here. So Fichuri had a question. Would you ever invest in microdot lavs? I don't know how robust they are physically. So I know microdot, for those that are not familiar with it, was an effort to kind of make it so that rather than having to re-terminate your lavalier microphone with a different connector, anytime you used a different wireless microphone system with a different type of input, 3.5 millimeter, and then all the different LEMO connectors with different numbers of pins, 3, 4, 5, or 4 and 5 generally, or other types of connectors. You could instead buy a microdot adapter, connect the microdot termination on the lavalier microphone to the particular connector that you needed for your wireless system, and then plug it in. The problem is, I don't know how robust they are. I've had one in the past, and it got a little bit dicey at times. I'd get some crackle, and it felt like the connection wasn't strong. So it's not the ideal solution. I think some people look at it as, oh, this will just future-proof me. And also the microdot connectors are pretty expensive. The adapters, they're quite expensive. So it's actually probably less expensive to re-terminate the lavalier by sending it into a place like Gotham Sound or True Audio. So anyway, maybe once you include shipping, maybe it is about the same. I don't know, but I think in terms of just the robustness, I would prefer to have a native connector versus microdot. That's my personal opinion. That's not the right opinion. It's just mine. Others may have some other thoughts here. Christopher had a similar experience. Those connectors always go bad, and you start getting all kinds of scratchy audio. All right. Did you test the preamps of the Zoom UAC 232? I have not. But it looks like maybe Julian Krause did. Would be a good one to go talk to. The Fitzgerald, dang, I'm planning on upgrading to the SD820 Nexus, A20 Nexus from the Deity system, but I guess I'll just re-terminate my lavs. Yeah, probably. Yeah, if you're using them a lot, I would probably just re-terminate them. Okay. Oh, Matt Ruff says, with Final Cut, you only get 12 or 15 dB, and that could be a pain. I agree. But I'll be honest, I usually do a lot of the processing of the audio for YouTube videos where I have a very discrete, like a small number of tracks, audio tracks, because I do my YouTube videos, I just record those all in one take. And same at work, when we're doing education video, it's all in one take. We just chop it up. So what I typically do is actually process it first, then bring it into the nonlinear editor. But yeah, that is a pain that they only give you. It's less than 20 dB, which is kind of a pain. All right. Oh, Synergy, your sound. I've never had any failure in microdot in the last 10 years. There you go. There's a different experience. So thank you for sharing, Synergy. Matt also had his held up. So he would switch between Shure and straight XLR. Okay. In Fitzgerald's case, he's thinking that reliability and durability is more important than ease of use during microdot. I think if you're doing production sound on, my experience is the thing that gets abused most on set from the sound gear department is lavalier microphones and transmitter packs. And I'm not trying to blame actors, but that, they've got a lot going on. They've got their minds on other things. They've got wardrobe when they're switching or whatever. Things happen. I've had a lot of lavalier microphones with swinging transmitter packs. People have had transmitter packs fall into toilets, all sorts of things. These things get abused, and I would probably not want to put that kind of stress, if you're doing production sound on the microdot. But other people are having a great experience, so. All right. And yeah, people pulling the antenna or the lavs to remove the packs. That's what you're protecting against, essentially. Mark says, thanks for showing me the bounce to new layer. I've been bouncing to new track. Didn't know that it worked like that. Yes, that is a very handy feature in DaVinci Resolve. In fact, in Fairlight, that is one of the coolest features, I think, is the layered tracks. Super, super useful. All right, friends. I think that's what we have time for today. Thank you for coming by. It's great to catch up with you all. We should have a Zoom H1 XLR review coming in the next depending on how the testing goes, it's either going to be next Sunday or the Sunday after that. Also, for next Sunday, if everything works out, we are going to have another utility sound technician come and show us all about lavalier hiding techniques. So hopefully, keeping my fingers crossed, that will work out for next week. But in the meantime, get out there, make some great sound, and we will talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody.